Thank you very much. That closes this debate. The vote will take place tomorrow. And now, the next item on the agenda is the situation of Ethiopian migrants in detention centers in Saudi Arabia.
I would like to repeat again what I said before the debate, that the order of intervention remains according to the rules now. But on the next Bureau meeting, we are going to talk about the request by several MEPs to change the order of intervention. So the first one, az első hozzászóló, Orbán Crespo képviselő.
The first speaker is going to be Mr. Orbán Crespo.
Thank you, President. Thousands of migrants are locked up in subhuman conditions, suffering torture, violation in detention facilities. This is a scandal. Unfortunately, since 2017, we're seeing mass detention and expulsion running counter to international law. Saudi Arabia is ignoring and violating human rights, sometimes with the blessing of the US and even the European Union. We need to address the illegal migratory policies in Saudi Arabia. This is just one more example of many breaches in Saudi Arabia. Europe continues to sell arms and offer cooperation agreements to Saudi Arabia. While this is all happening, we need an arms embargo, an immediate release of all migrants and all human rights defenders. We need to see tangible policies in action here.
Thank you very much. Please keep to your speaking times. The next speaker is Mr. Utterson.
Thank you. The European Parliament is sending out a clear message condemning the fate that awaits migrants in Saudi Arabia held in camps. This resolution goes even further, much further. We flag the systematic breach of human rights, the rights of human rights defenders, women. We also talk about the fact that there have been no sentences and punishment of those responsible for the assassination of Mr. Khashoggi. We continue to trade in weapons with Saudi Arabia. So a couple of points. The resolution calls on the European institutions to reduce the level of cooperation with Saudi Arabia. And let me say to the EPP that we've seen a scandal around Venezuela and the problems that we face there with that resolution. And really, it seems that there's double standards applied here.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Isabel Santos. Thank you very much, Madam President. Now, the reports we hear are very worrying, from torture, inhuman treatment, including women and children, that are experienced by women and children in Saudi Arabia, in prisons, without drinking water, food or medicines. This is a situation that has gone on for some time now and is getting worse currently. This is a country where the death penalty persists, and there are constant abuses of human rights. Badawi, there's a whole list of people that we have supported in the Parliament through our resolutions. We should not forget Moria inside our own EU borders. We should not forget the drama of around 30,000 Ethiopian migrants who were detained in Saudi Arabia and other victims of human rights violations. We condemn the inhumane treatment of these migrants and we call for their immediate release. The European Union has to send out a clear signal as to its relationship with Saudi Arabia. We need to reduce our diplomatic representation at the next G20 meeting, which will take place in Saudi Arabia, then we need to put a full stop to the sale of goods that could be used in repressing and surveying the people of Saudi Arabia. We need to create the necessary conditions for a voluntary safe return of these migrants to their home countries. Thank you very much. The next speaker will be Mr. Pait.
The situation of the Ethiopian migrants in detention centers in Saudi Arabia is deplorable. 30,000 people held in dire conditions in 10 centers in Saudi Arabia after escaping the crossfire from Houthi and Saudi forces on the border. They are lacking water and food, the sanitary conditions are appalling, and they have no medical care, with tuberculosis and other diseases rapidly spreading. Saudi Arabia needs to immediately release all detainees and transfer them to facilities where they have access at least to the basics: food, water, medical services, sanitation and space. The torture and ill treatment in the detention centres must stop immediately, and the investigation must be conducted into all allegations of human rights violations. International monitors must be given access to monitor the situation there, and Ethiopian migrants must be provided a safe and dignified repatriation in cooperation with IOM. As human rights are and must be at the core of EU's external policy, EU and member states must raise this issue also with Saudi Arabia most urgently. And I think that it's also necessary to downgrade EU institutional and diplomatic representation at the upcoming G20 Leaders Summit to send a clear message that this kind of treatment is not acceptable. Thank you.
Következő hozzászóló Wieseler Lima képviselő asszony, a szó.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Wieseler Lima.
Madam President, it's important to speak about the discriminatory laws against women in Saudi Arabia. It's important to talk about defenders of human rights and political prisoners whose rights are flouted. It's important that we can condemn the use of the death penalty in this country. It's important that the European Parliament looks at the overall situation of human rights in Saudi Arabia. I ask to our colleagues that this should be one of the subjects on the agenda. We have a resolution on the situation of Ethiopian migrants in Saudi detention centres. I will limit myself to this resolution and the question of migration, and that's what I will be voting on. Should I add? We can add subjects to the resolutions. There are other centres of detention and other reprehensible conditions for detainees, which we could be talking about. When you talk about the migrants in Saudi Arabia, these people are living in difficult situations. People passing through Yemen, when they arrive, they are exploited, underpaid, at the mercy of their employer under the kafala system, which is like a system of modern slavery. Affected by COVID-19, millions of thousands of migrants are in these centres without any resources. The Ethiopians expulsed by Yemen, and they are not repatriated. They are held in camps under inhuman conditions. Many of them have caught COVID-19, all sorts of other abuse. This lasts weeks and months, and there are people in vulnerable situations like pregnant women and children, and this is unsupportable. So we're calling on the Ethiopian authorities to repatriate their nationals, but also in Saudi Arabia to make sure that these centres respect international standards and migrants are not maltreated and not subjected to torture or sexual violence. We call on the EU not just to be flag up the situation, but use all the diplomatic levers and political levers to put an end to it. I would like to affirm our support for the UN Pact on Migration, it's important that human rights are protected, and in particular for those in vulnerable groups. Thank you very much.
Köszönöm szépen, és akkor a következő hozzászóló Kelly képviselőtársunk, öné az.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Sean Kelly.
Like many more, I'm very concerned about the various reports of inadequate and inhumane conditions at the detention centres in Saudi Arabia for Ethiopian migrants. The migrants from Ethiopia and other countries have been working in northern Yemen, but were forced out by the Houthi rebels, now face unimaginable cruelty, including being chained together in pairs and using their cell floors as toilets. Saudi Arabia has also been cracking down on illegal migrants, with at least 10,000 Ethiopians on average being deported each month. But earlier this year, Ethiopian officials requested a moratorium because of the coronavirus pandemic, news agency AFP reports. The EU should work with Ethiopian authorities to help create enough space in quarantine facilities to welcome people back, to ensure they are not bringing coronavirus with them, and that if individuals are repatriated to their home countries, it should be done in a dignified way. So therefore, we're calling on Saudi Arabia to fulfil its promise to launch an investigation into the allegations of cruelty in the detention centre.
Köszönöm szépen. Következő hozzászóló Arena képviselő asszony.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Mrs. Maria Arena.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much, Madam President. The Saudi government has spent billions of dollars as part of a communication strategy trying to improve its image in the international community. But we will not be fooled. The situation of human rights in Saudi Arabia is terrible. The murder of Mr. Khashoggi by Saudi Arabian agents has not led to anyone being actually convicted of this murder. Prince Mohammed bin Salman has tried to improve his image through PR measures, but at the same time Saudi Arabian authorities are ordering arrests by the thousands of dissidents, intellectuals and even members of the royal family. There should be no surprise then that the situation of migrants from Ethiopia is absolutely democratic, because this country simply doesn't know what human rights means. No, it's not enough to simply invite music or sports stars or host the G20 to try and cover up the atrocities and violations of human rights that take place in Saudi Arabia. Being part of this strategy, the European Union would become an accomplice. So we should reduce to the minimum the EU participation in the G20 meeting. We need to send a clear political message in all forms of relationship we have with the country, so that we prioritise the issue of human rights. Thank you.
Következő hozzászóló Rafaela képviselőtársunk, öné a szó képviselő.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Mrs. Rafaela.
Imagine the cruelty of being put in detention camps with thousands and thousands chained with no roofs and using cell floors as your bed. For migrant workers from Ethiopia in search for a better future, this is the day-to-day reality. In the past 6 months, at least 30,000 migrants are put into these cruel, inhumane conditions. Human rights organisations report cases of deaths due to inhumane treatment. And these men, women and children have the right to have a dignified life. They have the right to safely return to their homes. The EU should call upon the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to respect international law and immediately improve conditions. The EU should call upon the Ethiopian government to respect their citizens' rights and urgently facilitate the voluntary repatriation of its nationals. And I call upon the European Commission to provide support to Ethiopians voluntarily returning home from Saudi Arabia and to send diplomatic representatives from the EU to visit the detention camps. Thank you.
Köszönöm szépen. Következő hozzászóló Bilde képviselő asszony. Öné a szó.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Ils sont des
Thank you. There are hundreds, children, pregnant women, locked up in prisons, sniffing death and illness. They experience torture and executions. That is the fate of 16,000 Ethiopian migrants in Saudi Arabia. we are aware of the deplorable treatment of migrants by Arab regimes. Is it not hypocritical to wage against the kafala when we've awarded the 2022 World Cup Championship to Qatar? The drama of Ethiopian migrants shows the double standards in the migrant crisis. We're in Europe, we're opening up our gates to a flood of humanity, and the Gulf states who reject their rights and this tragedy affects sub-Saharan states caught in the vice. In Ethiopia, there are 2.9 million people who are internally displaced. Often people are deprived of their very basic freedoms. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Mr. Tarabella.
The situation on Ethiopian migrants in Saudi Arabian prison is just the last episode of a long list of human rights violations in the country. Since March, over 30,000 people, including pregnant women and children, have been arbitrarily detained in unthinkable sanitary conditions. We are all aware of the importance of Saudi Arabia as a partner for the European Union and for the stability in the Middle East. However, this cannot be an excuse for the EU to ignore those violations. We all remind Jamal Khashoggi, Raif Badawi, Lujaina al-Hatul and the women activists, and also Prince Salman bin Abdulaziz and the Princess Basma, arbitrarily detained for years. The EU cannot remain silent or use double standards. The sharing of our fundamental values and the respect for human rights must be an essential condition in our relations with third countries. For this reason, with this resolution, we strongly urge the President von der Leyen and Charles Michel to reconsider or downgrade the EU participation in the G20 summit in November. And finally, this would be an opportunity for the EU to show coherence with its value and do not legitimise the impunity for the crimes committed in Saudi Arabia.
Thank you very much. I'll now give the floor to Mrs. Schwitzer on behalf of the Commission.
Members, my colleagues, High Representative Borrell and Commissioner Lenarčič are travelling to Addis Ababa with the last EU humanitarian air bridge flight. This humanitarian air bridge flight is very specific in its nature, as it aims at bringing support to the African Union and the Africa Centre for Disease Control and Prevention to be further distributed in African countries. It will be the third and last shipment to Addis, the most significant one, and also the last humanitarian air bridge flight organised by the European Union jointly with Germany. Besides the COVID-19 component, the joint visit to Addis is extremely timely. Regarding the African Union, it will be an opportunity to keep the momentum of a strengthened European Union African Union partnership despite the postponement of the summit. With Ethiopian partners, it will be an opportunity to express our concerns on the political situation in the run-up to the elections. We have seen the shocking reports about African migrants, mainly Ethiopians, reportedly held under dreadful conditions in detention centres in Saudi Arabia. We also understand that earlier this week, 8 Ethiopians died and 12 went missing off the coast of Djibouti after failing to reach Yemen. We knew already that the conflict in Yemen has created the world's gravest humanitarian crisis. However, what we are discussing today shows that it also makes the situation of many migrants in the region close to unbearable. Despite the conflict, migration continues. The conflict in Yemen provides a fertile breeding ground for trafficking and smuggling networks, which profit from desperate African citizens looking for a better life in the Gulf. We are taking this situation seriously and are following up and helping where we can. The EU delegation in Riyadh has raised the conditions of detention centres with Saudi Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Labour rights and migration management are indeed issues we want to discuss more regularly with our Saudi interlocutors. There are indeed things to be said. Last week, High Representative Borrell received the Saudi Foreign Minister and reaffirmed the European Union's interest in a structured human rights dialogue in which migration features prominently. We hope to launch this dialogue soon. We are also reinforcing our engagement with the countries of origin in the Horn of Africa. Today, the High Representative and Commissioner Lenarčič are in Ethiopia. They will visit an international organisation for migration transit centre where Ethiopian deportees, including from the Gulf, are quarantined upon arrival. We have recently provided €60 million to the Horn of Africa Intergovernmental Authority, EGOT, to address the impact of COVID-19. This aid will also benefit migrants. We are eager to encourage a region-to-region dialogue on migration management between the Horn and the Gulf, as proposed by the Intergovernmental Authority on Development. We also hope that the soon-to-be-launched Red Sea Council can provide a platform for this. More broadly, in our external action, we are committed to, and indeed an advocate for, the protection of the human rights of all migrants. The recently adopted EU Action Plan on Human Rights and Democracy 2020-2024 calls for the protection of migrants, refugees and internally displaced persons. It also calls for support measures to improve integration and access to basic services. In our times of COVID-19, this is of course even more important. In third countries, we strive to have migrants and forcibly displaced persons benefit from healthcare systems and include these groups in strategies related to COVID-19. Thank you very much for this debate.
Köszönöm szépen. A vitát ezennel lezárom, és a szavazásra.
Thank you very much. On that note, I close today's debate. The vote will take place tomorrow. In 1 minute and a half, precisely, at 12:30, we will be announcing the results of the votes. Thank you very much.
We have 1 minute.